It started with a photo. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to let something like this happen to me, but here I was, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of the words on the screen. I was at a point in my life where I felt like I had everything under control, everything in its place. My wife, Bethany, and I were well into our 10th year of marriage. We had a nice home, decent jobs, 2 kids, and a boat, my pride and joy. But I knew something wasn't right. It wasn't the arguments, the silent treatments, or the small signs. It wasn't the little things she said or didn't say. It was something deeper, something I couldn't put my finger on but felt gnawing at me like a constant itch. I had learned over the years to ignore the itch. I convinced myself it was nothing. But then came the text message. It was Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting on the porch of our lake house. The air was warm but crisp enough to make me feel comfortable as I sipped on my coffee. The kids were off at their grandma's, and Bethany had promised to meet me later once she finished a work thing. At least, that's what she said. She'd been working more lately, sometimes for hours into the evening. I had noticed it, but I didn't ask. I told myself, she's just focused. Maybe she needed it, I thought. She was always the ambitious one in our relationship, the one who didn't settle for less. Then my phone buzzed. The notification came through with a soft chime. I didn't think much of it at first, expecting it to be a message from my mom or a friend. But when I unlocked the screen, I saw her name. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just any message, it was a photo. The image was innocent enough at first glance. Bethany sitting on the edge of the boat, a large smile on her face, her arm casually draped around someone else. My stomach twisted. It was the boat I had bought with my own money. The lake house I had worked so hard to pay off. The place I thought we had built our dreams in. I stared at the photo longer, the words accompanying it pulling me into a suffocating haze. "Wish you were here," it said. I felt my pulse quicken. I knew instantly that something wasn't right. Something that had been simmering under the surface for far too long. A knot in my chest formed, and my mind raced as I asked myself the question that I couldn't ignore. What is going on? I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. But then, the rage started to bubble up. Not just at her, but at myself. How could I be so blind? So stupid? How long had this been happening? With shaking hands, I typed back one simple reply. I am. I couldn't believe I was doing it, but I pressed send. Maybe it was the impulse. Maybe it was the need to confront whatever this was head on. I stood up and walked down to the dock, my feet heavy on the wood planks beneath me. The air felt colder now, sharper. The world around me seemed quieter, as if everything had slowed down in response to the storm that was brewing inside me. The boat was parked by the dock. I'd spent so many evenings out there, just me, the lake, and my thoughts. It used to be a peaceful escape, but now, it felt like a prison, a cage, a place where everything I thought I knew was being torn apart. I walked toward it, the photo still burning in my mind. As I neared the boat, I saw them, Bethany and him. I didn't even have to say a word. She didn't see me at first, but when she looked up, her eyes met mine. The smile faded from her face faster than I could blink, and all the color drained from her cheeks. The man sitting next to her didn't look shocked. He looked confused, but not afraid. I knew what I had to do. The realization hit her at the same time the dread hit me. She hadn't expected me to show up. Her hand flew to her mouth as she saw me standing there, my expression blank. I didn't care if she was embarrassed. She had put me here. She had forced me to this moment. I wasn't expecting you, she said, her voice shaky, but there was no apology in her eyes. The guy next to her gave me an awkward smile, clearly trying to brush the situation off. But I wasn't interested in him. I looked at Bethany and said the only thing I could. "You thought you could get away with this?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I wasn't angry. No, anger wasn't what I was feeling. I felt numb, confused, hurt, betrayed, and something else, something dark and powerful, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into the abyss. "I think it's time for us to have a real conversation," I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel the tension in my chest. She didn't move. The silence between us felt like a weight, and I knew everything was about to change. The calm before the storm had passed, and now, I was ready for the storm to hit. I stood there, frozen in place for what felt like hours, staring at Bethany and the man sitting next to her on the boat. Her eyes locked onto mine, wide with shock, her mouth trembling as if searching for the right words, except none came. For a moment, everything around us seemed to blur. The wind, the quiet lapping of the water against the boat, the trees swaying on the shore, all of it faded. The only thing in focus was the truth, hanging in the air like an unbearable weight. I should have been furious, but I wasn't. The anger, the rage, the urge to shout, it was all there, bubbling beneath the surface, threatening to explode. But something deeper was at work inside me. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that my whole life, the life I had worked so hard to build, was nothing but a facade. I had always prided myself on being the one who held it all together. I was the calm one, the one who put everyone else's needs first. But here I was, standing on the dock, facing the woman I thought I knew, who had shattered the trust we'd built over years. And I felt like I didn't know her at all. Bethany's hand instinctively reached out to the man beside her, as if trying to protect him from whatever I was about to say. His eyes darted between us, looking uncomfortable, but there was no guilt in his expression. No shame. He wasn't the one who had wronged me, Bethany was. But I didn't want to deal with him. Not yet. I couldn't. Why? I finally found my voice, and it came out quieter than I expected. Why would you do this, Bethany? She opened her mouth, her lips parting to speak, but nothing came out. She looked so small, so fragile in that moment, like the confident woman I had married had been replaced by someone else. The smile that had been on her face when she sent me that photo was gone, replaced by the hollow look of a person who knew their world was about to crumble. Dennis, I didn't mean for it to, she stammered, but I cut her off, not wanting to hear any excuses. Don't, I said, my voice firmer now. Don't give me that. You didn't mean for it? Then why send me that photo? I paused, letting the silence hang between us. The weight of her actions seemed to press down on her, and I could see her face redden, guilt finally breaking through the facade. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? She looked away, and in that moment, I saw something in her eyes, regret. She was sorry, but not for the reasons I had hoped. She was sorry she'd been caught, sorry that I had walked in on the perfect picture of her betrayal. But I wasn't sure that was enough. The man on the boat cleared his throat awkwardly, but I ignored him. He had no place in this conversation, not yet. The truth wasn't about him. It was about me and her. Is this why you've been distant? I asked, the question hanging in the air. Is this why you've been so cold, so distant from me? You've been seeing him behind my back, while I've been working my ass off to keep our family afloat. Bethany opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her eyes welled up with tears, and for a brief moment, I thought she might break down, but she didn't. Instead, she looked up at me, defeated. I didn't think you'd find out, Dennis, she whispered. I didn't think you'd ever figure it out. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. She didn't think I'd find out. All these years, I had been blind, oblivious to the fact that my wife, the woman I had built my life around, had been living a double life. The anger finally started to surface, but it wasn't directed at her. It was directed at myself. How could I have been so naive? How could I have let this happen? I felt the cold sting of betrayal deep in my chest, but I didn't let it consume me. Instead, I took a deep breath and stepped onto the boat. The smell of salt water and motor oil hit me as I crossed the deck, and I stood next to Bethany. She flinched slightly, but I didn't care. I was done being the passive husband, the guy who always took the back seat. Look at me, Bethany, I said, my voice low but steady. Look at what you've done. You've destroyed everything. And for what? A fleeting moment of excitement? An escape from the life you've built with me? She didn't respond. She didn't have to. I could see the guilt and shame on her face, but it didn't make me feel better. It didn't fix what she had done. I'm not going to beg you for an explanation, I said quietly, looking down at her hand still resting on her lover's arm. What I want now is something you can't give me. You've already taken everything. The man on the boat, who had been quietly watching us, spoke up, his voice soft but firm. I didn't mean for this to happen, man. I didn't. I turned to him, cutting him off. I don't want to hear it, I said. This isn't about you. This is about her and me. You've already made your choice. He looked at me for a long moment, then stood up, his chair scraping against the deck. He seemed to understand that there was no place for him here, not right now. As he made his way to the dock, I turned back to Bethany. She was still staring at the ground, her tears falling freely now. I'm done, Bethany, I said, the words coming out almost like a sigh. You're not the woman I thought you were, and I can't do this anymore. Her eyes flickered up to meet mine. Dennis, please, let's talk about this. But I didn't let her finish. I turned away, walked off the boat, and made my way down the dock, my heart pounding in my chest. This wasn't the end, not yet. But it was the beginning of something new. A new chapter. One where I wasn't going to be the one sitting in silence anymore. The next part of my life would be on my terms. And no one, not even Bethany, would take that from me. I walked down the dock, my feet heavy, my mind still trying to process what had just unfolded. The night air felt colder than it should, and the sounds of the water seemed muted, as though the world had become strangely quiet in the wake of my discovery. My heart was still racing, but the anger I had been expecting to feel wasn't there. What I felt was emptiness, a hollow ache in my chest that no amount of fury could fill. I had spent so many years building my life around the idea of loyalty, of trust. My father had always told me that a man's word was everything, that once you gave someone your trust, it was sacred. But in one photo, in one simple message, everything I had believed in had been turned upside down. I didn't know where to go next. There was no rule book for this. No guide on how to handle your wife cheating on you, especially when it was with someone you didn't know. My brain kept circling back to the same question. Why? Why hadn't she told me? Why had she waited until it was too late to come clean? As I stepped away from the boat, my thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind me. It was Bethany. She was trying to catch up, her shoes clacking against the wooden planks as she ran after me. Dennis, please, she called out, her voice strained. Don't walk away. We need to talk about this. We can fix this. I stopped in my tracks, but didn't turn around. I couldn't look at her right now, not without feeling like I was about to shatter into a million pieces. The woman I had once known, my wife, was standing behind me, begging me to hear her out. But all I could hear were the lies. All I could see were the lies she had told me over the past few months. I wanted to be strong, to stand firm in this moment, but part of me, this weak, naive part, wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, there was some reasonable explanation for this. But I knew better. My gut told me everything I needed to know. Turning slowly, I faced her. She was standing a few feet away, her eyes wide and pleading. Her cheeks were flushed from crying, but the hurt in her expression was not enough to erase the anger bubbling inside me. You don't get to fix this, Bethany, I said quietly, but the words felt like they were echoing in my mind. You've already broken something that can't be fixed. Not by words, not by explanations. You made your choice. Her lips trembled, and she took a step forward, reaching out as if to touch me. I flinched, taking a step back instinctively. It wasn't that I didn't want her to touch me. It was that I couldn't let her. Not after everything. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen. I shook my head, the words bitter on my tongue. You don't get to say that. Not after everything. Not after you sent me that photo. Not after you've been hiding this from me. Her eyes searched mine, looking for any sign of understanding, but there was nothing left in me to give. The man on the boat, the one who had sat there smiling, who had touched her like he had every right to. It all came crashing down on me. The way he had looked at me, the way Bethany had tried to act like everything was normal, as if I wouldn't know. I thought you loved me, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. But now, I realize I was just a part of the picture you were trying to create. A piece of the life you thought you wanted. She took another step forward, but this time I didn't move back. I didn't feel the need to. Please, Dennis, she said, her voice cracking. This isn't who I am. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But I love you. I swear I do. The weight of those words hit me harder than I expected. I love you. That was the excuse, wasn't it? That was the lie she thought would make it all better. But love didn't break the foundation of a marriage. Love didn't sneak around behind someone's back. Love didn't tear apart the very things that were meant to keep us together. I can't believe you, I said, the words bitter, heavy. I can't believe that after everything we've been through, you'd throw it all away for a moment of weakness. Bethany closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. I was lonely, Dennis. I felt neglected. I thought maybe if I got the attention from someone else, it would fill the emptiness inside me. But it didn't. It never did. Her confession hung in the air like a thick fog. Loneliness. Neglect. I had heard those words before, but I didn't want to believe them. I had tried. I had always tried to be there for her, to give her everything I could. But somewhere along the way, we had lost each other, and I had never seen it coming. I can't do this anymore, I said, my voice low but firm. I can't keep pretending that everything's okay when it's falling apart. I'm done. Bethany took a step back, her face crumbling as she realized the finality of my words. Her hands shook, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerable, exposed. She was just as broken as I felt, but that didn't make it right. I turned away, the silence between us suffocating. I couldn't look at her anymore. I couldn't stand there and pretend everything was fine. The boat was still there, my boat. But it felt like a distant memory now, a symbol of everything I had lost. As I walked back toward the house, I could hear Bethany calling after me, but I didn't stop. She wasn't the woman I had married. She was someone else now, someone I didn't recognize. And for the first time, I realized that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't her that had changed, it was me. I wasn't the same man I had been when I first walked into this lake house. I wasn't the same man I had been when I first saw her smile. And now, I had to figure out who I was going to be without her. The house felt emptier than it ever had before. The silence that enveloped it wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating. I couldn't escape the reality of what had happened, what she had done. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, and the once serene lake that had always been my refuge now felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. I had always been the quiet one in the relationship, the one who avoided confrontation, the one who kept the peace. But standing there, alone, in that empty house with nothing but the weight of Bethany's betrayal pressing down on me, I knew that part of me had died. That Dennis, the one who had believed in unconditional trust and love, was gone. And the worst part? I couldn't bring him back. Bethany had tried to apologize, tried to fix things, but I didn't want her apology anymore. It wasn't that I didn't care, some part of me still did, but that part was buried under layers of hurt and disappointment. She had made a choice that I couldn't just forgive. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I walked into the living room and collapsed onto the couch. The weight of everything felt too much to bear. My mind was racing, my thoughts scattered in every direction, trying to make sense of the mess Bethany had created. How had things gotten this far? How had I allowed her to pull away from me like that without doing anything about it? I thought back to the good times, when we laughed together, when everything seemed so simple, so genuine. I remembered our first trip to the lake house, how we had sat on the porch and dreamed about our future. But now, it was just a shell of those memories. A place where lies had been exchanged and trust had been shattered. My phone buzzed. I looked at it, but I knew who it was before I even unlocked the screen. Bethany. She had been sending me messages nonstop since I walked away from her on the boat, but I hadn't responded. I couldn't. What was there to say? I picked up the phone and saw her name at the top of the screen. Her message was short. Please come back, Dennis. I'll do anything to make this right. I stared at the message for a moment, feeling a storm of emotions building inside me. Anything to make this right? Those words used to mean something. Back when we first started, before the world started pulling us in different directions. But now, those words felt hollow. I didn't reply. I couldn't. The answer was already clear to me. There was nothing she could do to make this right. The trust had been broken, the foundation shattered, and all that was left was the wreckage of what we had built together. After a few minutes, I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the lake. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the water. It was beautiful, almost peaceful, but I didn't feel peace. I didn't feel anything close to it. I walked back to the dock. The boat was still there, sitting idle like a symbol of all the things that had gone wrong. I climbed onto it, pushing off from the shore, and took the wheel in my hands. The motor hummed to life, and the boat cut through the water with ease. But I didn't feel in control, not really. The feeling of being lost in the middle of the lake mirrored what I was feeling inside. I was drifting, unsure of where I was going or what I was supposed to do next. I had spent so many years building a life with Bethany, so many years fighting for us, only to watch it all unravel in one moment. And now, I was alone, on a boat in the middle of the lake, with no direction and no purpose. The realization hit me then, like a wave crashing against the hull of the boat. This is it. There's no going back. The man I had been, the one who believed in love and loyalty, had vanished. And in his place, there was only the truth, cold, harsh, and undeniable. Bethany had tried to reach me, but it was too late. She had made her choice. She had walked away from everything we had built. And now, I had to walk away too. I shut the engine off and sat there in the stillness, staring out at the water. The sun was almost gone now, and the stars were starting to twinkle in the sky. The lake, which had once been a place of calm and peace, now felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. I had no idea where I was going from here. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of someone else's mistakes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of something that had been buried deep inside me for years. It wasn't happiness, but it was something like freedom. The freedom to move on, to rebuild, and to become someone new. As I sat there, I realized that maybe this was the end of one chapter, but it was also the beginning of another. A chapter where I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself, to take control of my own life. The boat drifted further into the lake, and with it, I left behind everything that had weighed me down. It wasn't just Bethany I was leaving behind. It was the version of myself that had let her pull me apart. The future was unknown, but for the first time in a long time, that uncertainty didn't scare me. It felt like an opportunity to rebuild my life on my terms. And as the boat floated silently on the water, I realized that I was no longer lost. I knew exactly where I was going. The night felt endless. The weight of everything that had happened was still sitting heavy on my chest, but it was different now. I wasn't numb anymore. I wasn't wandering through life pretending that things were okay. No, something inside me had snapped, and in its place was a kind of clarity I hadn't had in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I wasn't afraid of what would come next. I made my way back to the house after drifting for hours, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. The boat barely made a sound as I steered it back toward the dock. As I pulled up to the shore, I saw the lights of the house glowing faintly in the distance. Bethany was still inside, probably waiting for me, hoping for some kind of miracle. But I wasn't her savior. I wasn't going to fix this. I took a deep breath as I stepped off the boat, my feet hitting the familiar wooden planks of the dock. The lake house looked the same, but it felt foreign now. It wasn't the sanctuary it used to be. It was a reminder of everything I had lost, everything she had taken from me. I walked into the house, the front door creaking as I pushed it open. The smell of stale air hit me, mixed with the faint scent of the wine we had shared earlier. Bethany was sitting on the couch, her head down, her hands clasped tightly together. She looked so small, so fragile, and I could see the tears still streaming down her face. She didn't look up when I entered. She just sat there, waiting for something to change, for some kind of answer that would make everything right again. But the answer was already clear. "Dennis," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please, don't leave me. I can't do this without you." I took a step forward, but my heart didn't soften. I didn't feel the pull to go to her and comfort her. I didn't feel the urge to make everything okay again. That part of me, the one who always tried to fix things, was gone. The truth had shattered it. "I'm not leaving, Bethany," I said, my voice steady but final. "But I'm not staying, either. Not the way we were before." Her eyes finally met mine, full of confusion and desperation. "What does that mean? What do you want me to do?" "I want you to be honest with yourself, with me, and I want you to leave. You're not the person I married anymore, and I'm not the person I used to be, either. We've changed, and we can't go back. We can't pretend like everything is fine when it's not." The words felt strange coming out of my mouth, but they were the truth. The hardest truth I'd ever had to face. I had spent so long being the man who tried to hold it all together, who tried to make everyone happy. But I wasn't that man anymore, and I didn't need to be. Bethany opened her mouth, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. She couldn't speak. She couldn't fix this. "I'm sorry, Dennis," she said after a long pause, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen this way." I shook my head, unable to process the apology. "I know you didn't. But it happened, and we can't undo it. I've been blind to what was going on between us for too long, and now I'm seeing things clearly. It's too late for us. We're too far gone." I turned away, walking toward the door. I could feel her eyes on my back, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I walked outside, feeling the cool night air hit my face. I stood there for a long moment, letting the wind ruffle my hair, my mind racing. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know where my life would go from here. But for the first time in years, I felt free. The weight of the past was lifting, and in its place was a terrifying, exhilarating sense of possibility. I could start over. I could build something new, and I could do it without her. I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to stay trapped in a life that wasn't mine anymore. I wasn't going to let the past define me. I was done pretending. The future wasn't clear, but it was mine to shape. And for the first time, I was ready to face whatever came next. As I stood on the porch, looking out at the lake, I felt a quiet sense of strength, one that had been buried beneath years of doubt, years of playing it safe. But not anymore. Not tonight. Tonight, I was taking control of my own story, and no one, not even Bethany, could take that away from me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every part of my body felt awake in a way I hadn't experienced in years, each nerve buzzing with the weight of what had just happened. I sat in the living room, my mind a hurricane of thoughts. The house felt like it was closing in around me. It was too quiet, too still. I kept staring at the phone in my hand, half expecting another message from Bethany, but none came. The silence between us was a kind of answer in itself. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. But what move was there left to make? I had already made my decision, the one that was supposed to bring relief, but only felt heavier the longer I sat with it. I could feel the lingering presence of Bethany upstairs. She hadn't left. I had expected her to, but she hadn't. Maybe she was still holding on to the hope that we could fix everything, that a few words, a few apologies, could undo the damage that had been done. But it was too late for that. I looked out the window at the lake. The morning sun was starting to break through the trees, casting a golden light across the water. It looked peaceful, but I didn't feel peaceful. Not anymore. I didn't feel anything close to peace. I stood up and walked into the kitchen, needing to move, needing to do something. The silence was crushing, and I couldn't take it any longer. I grabbed a mug from the cabinet, filled it with coffee, and leaned against the counter, staring down into the dark liquid. My mind kept wandering back to the night before, to the photo, to the moment when Bethany had finally seen me on the dock. The look in her eyes, the guilt, the way she had tried to explain herself, but her words hadn't reached me. It wasn't that I didn't care about her anymore. No, there was still something inside me that wanted to hold on, to try and fix it. But I couldn't ignore the truth, the reality of what had been happening right under my nose. I had spent years blind to the cracks in our relationship, and now they were too wide to ignore. I heard footsteps behind me, soft, hesitant. I didn't need to turn around to know it was Bethany. She was standing in the doorway, watching me, waiting for something. For me to look at her, for me to tell her everything would be okay. But I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I had already made my decision. Dennis, her voice was soft, almost pleading. Please look at me. I felt a lump form in my throat. I didn't want to face her. Not yet. I was still so angry, still so hurt by everything that had happened. But I couldn't stay silent forever. Slowly, I turned around to look at her. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her eyes red from crying. I'm sorry, she said again, the words barely above a whisper. I know I've hurt you. I know I've broken everything. But I need you to know, I didn't want any of this. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost believed her. I almost wanted to forgive her. But then I remembered the photo, the lies, the fact that she had been with him on my boat, in our lake house, the place where we were supposed to build memories together. The thought of it made the rage bubble up inside me again. You didn't mean for it to happen? I repeated, my voice low. You didn't mean for what to happen, Bethany? To betray me? To throw away everything we built for a moment of selfishness? What did you think was going to happen? She shook her head, her face crumpling with guilt. I don't know. I didn't think, Dennis. I just wanted something more. Something I wasn't getting from you. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had really tried to be everything she needed. I had given her everything I could. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. Is that what this is about? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. You didn't get enough attention? So you decided to throw away everything? To throw away us? She closed her eyes, the tears streaming down her face. No, it's not that simple. It wasn't about you not being enough. I don't even know what I was looking for. I was just lost. And then he came along, and I didn't know how to stop it. I clenched my fists, trying to keep the anger from spilling over. And you thought I wouldn't find out? You thought you could hide this from me forever? I never meant for you to find out, Dennis. I didn't think I'd ever have to face you like this. Yeah, well, I said, my voice cold now. You're facing it now. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of everything was crushing. The house, the boat, the lake. They all felt like reminders of the lie that had been living between us for so long. The silence was suffocating. I can't forgive you right now, I said, my voice finally steady. Maybe one day I will, but not today. Not when everything feels like it's been destroyed. She nodded, her face twisted with regret. I understand, she whispered. I walked past her without saying another word, heading for the door. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even care. I just needed to get away. I needed space. Space from her, from everything. I slammed the door behind me, not looking back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to keep pretending anymore. I was done with the lies. I was done with the silence. And I was done being someone I didn't recognize. The road ahead was unclear, but for the first time in a long time, that was okay. I was ready to face whatever came next. The world felt different after I left the house that day. The light outside seemed sharper, the air colder, as though the universe itself was adjusting to the shift in my life. I had spent years trying to be the man I thought everyone wanted me to be. The good husband, the reliable father, the one who always kept his promises. But in the blink of an eye, everything had changed. I didn't recognize myself anymore, and I sure as hell didn't recognize the woman I had married. I had driven for hours, not knowing where I was headed, only feeling the need to escape. The road stretched out before me like a metaphor for the rest of my life. Endless, unknown, and filled with the promise of freedom. But freedom wasn't as sweet as I had imagined it would be. It felt hollow, like a new emptiness had settled into my bones. Eventually, I pulled over to the side of the road. The evening had settled in, and the first stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. I turned off the engine, letting the silence envelop me. It wasn't that I wanted to avoid Bethany or our broken marriage anymore. It was that I didn't know how to confront it. How do you look someone in the eye who has destroyed everything you built together? How do you untangle years of love and trust, now so thoroughly corrupted? I reached into the glove compartment, pulling out the small bottle of whiskey I kept there for emergencies. The kind of emergencies no one ever wants to face. I unscrewed the cap and took a long sip, letting the burn travel down my throat. It didn't numb the pain, but it helped. It helped me forget, just for a moment. But no amount of alcohol could numb what I was feeling. No escape could make the truth go away. I stared out into the distance, my thoughts a chaotic storm. Bethany had wanted something more. She had claimed she was lost. And that was the excuse she gave me for her betrayal? It wasn't that simple. Nothing ever was. The deeper I thought about it, the more I realized just how deeply I had been deceived. I had seen the warning signs, hadn't I? The late nights, the strange moods, the distance. But I had ignored them. I had told myself that everything would be fine, that it was just a phase. I had trusted her. But now I was left with the harsh reality of what trusting someone really meant. It wasn't just about love. It wasn't about promises made. Trust was about vulnerability. And I had been vulnerable. I had given her everything. Another drink. The night grew colder. I was about to start the car and drive somewhere, anywhere, to escape this nightmare, when my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I knew who it was before I even looked at the screen. Bethany. I hesitated. My finger hovered over the notification, but I didn't open it. I wasn't ready to face her yet. But then, something in me snapped. Maybe it was the alcohol, or maybe it was the anger that had been simmering inside me for days. But I picked up the phone and unlocked it. The message was short, but it hit me like a slap across the face. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Please, Dennis. Please, let's fix this. I laughed bitterly. Fix it? How could she fix this? How could anything be fixed when the foundation had been ripped out from beneath us? I didn't respond. I couldn't. She had broken us. She had broken me. And no amount of apologies could change that. I threw the phone on the passenger seat, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The anger swelled again, this time harder, more intense. But this time, it wasn't just about her. It was about me, too. I had let this happen. I had allowed it to get this far without standing up for myself. I put the car in gear, my foot slamming on the gas as I drove off the side of the road and back into the night. The engine roared to life beneath me, and for a moment, I felt like I was finally in control. I didn't know where I was headed, but I couldn't go back. Not yet. Not with the wreckage of our life sitting behind me like a ghost. Hours passed, and eventually, I found myself driving down a road I didn't recognize. It was isolated, the kind of place where the only thing that mattered was the sound of your own thoughts. The kind of place where people came to disappear. Maybe that's what I needed, to disappear, to escape the constant ache that had settled in my chest. I pulled into a small motel, the neon sign flickering in the dark. I barely noticed the clerk at the front desk as I checked in. He handed me the key without saying a word. It wasn't until I was in the room that I realized just how far I had gone, physically and emotionally. I sat down on the bed, the room silent except for the distant hum of traffic outside. I thought about calling Bethany. I thought about going back home. But I didn't. I needed time to think, to breathe. I needed time to figure out who I was without her. As I lay back on the bed, the weight of the day crashing down on me, I closed my eyes. I didn't have the answers yet. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't afraid of the future. Whatever came next, I knew I would be okay. Because this time, I was in control. Tomorrow would come, and I would face it. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, I let myself feel something other than the numbness that had consumed me for months. I was ready for whatever came next. The next morning, the sunlight filtered through the cracked blinds of the motel room, waking me from a restless sleep. My eyes felt heavy, but my mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. The fog that had surrounded me for so long, the uncertainty, the fear, the endless questions, was finally starting to lift. I took a deep breath and stretched, feeling the weight in my chest ease just a little bit. It wasn't gone completely, but it was lighter, and that was a start. I didn't rush out of bed. I took my time, running my fingers through my hair and staring at the ceiling. The room was still quiet, and for the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel suffocating. It felt like freedom. I thought about everything I had gone through in the past few days. The pain, the betrayal, the anger, it had all been necessary. It had forced me to confront the parts of myself I had been ignoring, the parts that had allowed me to stay in a toxic situation for far too long. But now, those parts of me were waking up. The parts that were ready to stand up for myself. The parts that wanted more than just survival. I realized that I didn't need to be trapped by the past anymore. I didn't need to carry the weight of Bethany's mistakes, or the weight of my own. I had spent too long letting my life be defined by someone else's choices. It was time for me to define my own future. I grabbed my phone from the bedside table. Bethany's name was still there, lingering in my messages. I thought about her apology, about the brokenness I had seen in her eyes. For a moment, I felt the old ache of wanting to make it right. But then I remembered the clarity I had found in those dark moments. I wasn't the same person I had been when all of this started. I had changed. I wasn't going to let myself go back into that prison, hoping for something that wasn't there. I didn't reply to her message. Instead, I opened a new message and typed the words I had been avoiding saying to myself for far too long. I'm moving on. With a deep breath, I hit send. It felt freeing, like a weight had been lifted. Not because I was angry, not because I was running away from anything, but because I was finally letting go. The phone buzzed. I knew it was Bethany. But this time, I didn't feel the need to check. I didn't need her response. I had my own life to live now, and it was mine. I stood up and walked to the small window, looking out at the parking lot. The world outside was busy, full of people going about their lives, and I realized that life had gone on without me. I wasn't a passenger in my own story anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone else to make things right. I was going to make things right for me. I walked out of the motel room, the sunlight feeling warmer on my skin. I got in my car, the engine humming to life beneath me. As I drove down the open road, I felt a sense of excitement in the pit of my stomach. The unknown no longer felt like a threat. It felt like an adventure. The road stretched out before me, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace. I was no longer chasing after something that wasn't meant for me. I was chasing after my own future. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be moments of doubt, moments when the pain resurfaced. But I knew one thing for sure. I was ready for it. I was stronger than I had ever been before. And as I drove into the horizon, I realized that this was just the beginning. The end of one chapter, sure, but the beginning of a new, exciting story that was all mine. A story where I finally chose myself.